just like, at least for me, to like share motivation of why we put this together. So my involvement, or desire to get involved, even years ago when I accidentally became the head of the opposition, was just I wanted to make sure that there were multiple options presented to the community, right? And fair options, right? Ones that were good options and had been well thought through, right? And so in this committee process, I think that's what I've been repeatedly saying to the, I always get the acronym, GSBS. It's like, let's make sure we actually put real options in front of people. I'm not, I mean, there's a lot of options no one wants, like year-round school and things like that, but real options when it comes to facilities, right? I wasn't sure I saw things heading in that direction, right? And I think then, we got together after, I think Tom did an interview with Park City, what's the radio station over there? KC. Yeah, I don't know any acronyms, there you go. In that interview, and then Kim had done another interview, and in both those interviews, they kind of expressed, we're gonna have to build another high school, right? And so even before the conclusion of the committee meetings, we were already hearing this, there has to be another high school, there has to be another high school. And so, now in fairness to everyone, like, we aren't done, right? And I'm not sure what path will happen, right? But we wanted to make sure that if only one option was presented in terms of facilities of just another high school, that we at least could present another option to the community. So, I guess that said, the community never has to see any of this, right? If as a group, we come up with a way to like really present multiple options, right? I think we're not trying to, go outside the process or whatever else. We want to just make sure. Again, my whole motivation for ever being involved has just been, let's have the community see multiple options for when it comes to facilities. So,
Chris, can I just add a little color or whatever, if you will? And I mentioned this, I think, just very, very briefly. I think the last committee meeting. And there's similar kind of concerns here, and we come from different perspectives, but nevertheless, my biggest concern about this is I was running my campaign during the bond measure, and so it was an issue as I knocked on doors and met with people of getting feedback from all walks of life and all economic perspectives. And in a nutshell, with what's been happening here and what will continue to happen in this valley, my biggest concern is, to put it bluntly, a repeat of the last bond measure will fail. And everything that factored into that, I believe, has been moving in the opposite direction of supporting something similar. When you look at the lack of affordability, when you look at the demographics that's moving here. And so the biggest concern, I think, the one thing we all agree on is we need a solution that will succeed.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to put together here. The other thing we've tried to be really careful with is like, so I've literally probably spent 30 hours like making sure the numbers are right, and trying to check it this way and that way and whatever else. If you see anything that's not, like, let us know. Like, we're not trying to pull any fast ones. Everything in this deck is linked to the spreadsheet that's linked to the raw underlying data. I guess what I'm trying to say, like, my motives really aren't to like sabotage the board, right? Like I said, if you guys think this is a great proposal, you can put your name on it and you can take our names off. Like, that's not our motivation, right? Again, it really is to put just another proposal out there, right? Okay, so enough preamble. This is assuming that's the fastest you can. We can skip through these. The way we see it, there's largely two options for facilities, right? And again, this may not be your proposal. We're assuming that based on what we've been hearing from board members saying in the public, right? Would be two, we should really say two medium-sized high schools, right? Total cost of those from your numbers is 129 to 140 million, right? To build a new one, the enrollment would, at the peak, right? So over the next, whatever it is, 10 years, that puts enrollment in each of those high schools about 1,500 to 1,700 students under this model, right? There's another option, which is to expand the current high school and probably tear down West Campus, right? Unless it can be remodeled, right? And in its place, build a magnet school or a freshman school, right? The cost of this, using the same square footage numbers that were used for these, is about 40 to 78 million. That would put enrollment at Wasatch High School at 2,200 to 2,500 over the next 10 years, and enrollment at the freshman or magnet school at 750 to 850 over the next 10 years. These numbers are all based on the Davis demographics numbers that you've provided, both the, I think we have the 18 version and the updated version. Right?
Can I ask you how many square feet you figured for the back?
I can show you. It's in the
Oh,
it's in the source, but we can get to it. So we basically assumed a similar square footage cost and student square feet amount as you would in this other model, right? And Brad, by the way, this is his business, and so you can probably talk to that better than I can. So both of these options satisfy student enrollment for the foreseeable future. So in the 2018 Davis demographics study, they actually gave what they called a terminal value for, or what do they call it? Sorry, a maturity value for student enrollment in Wasatch County, right? So if you use that maturity value, so when the whole county is fully built out, both of these options satisfy demand, right? Now they could be wrong one way or the other, but based on the best numbers we have, both of these options satisfy that.
I think there might be some confusion on what they call their complete build out with Davis demographics. And
So
can we just address that very quickly, because I think that's a premise that we have to, moving forward. And first of all, we're all for looking at things differently and having a different proposal. We appreciate everybody coming today so that we can sit around the table and talk this through. But even with the numbers, when you say the next 10 years, we'd stay at 15 to 1,700. I would bet differently. I know that the Davis demographics tends to flatten out after about 5 years, and it gets even flatter going forward. The reason that happens, and what we're aware of, and I don't know that it's been explained really well, maybe to the committee or the community, is they base their numbers on planned or approved lots that are on the books. So they don't base any of their numbers on the guy that's going to go into the planning office at Wasatch County or Midway and propose a new subdivision. That's not part of their mix. So since we started with Davis, they tend to flatten out, in the middle. So I think we have to be aware of that.
yeah, so I think so. We could say we can't trust the estimates, but I think it's hard to just argue. Then we're just arguing in the space of speculatives, right? And I think what we've tried to do is say these are the numbers that district provided. You commissioned them twice now. That's the best we can do, right? They could go either way, right? And if you actually look at, if you look at the projection at the end, they've actually overestimated in the last 4 years rather than underestimated. And so, again, I think you could be right. No one has any idea what's going to happen in the valley, but we're using, I think, the best data we have from Davis demographics to do all of this. And if you throw that out, I don't know how we can even have it.
Well, no, I'm not throwing it out. I'm saying it is factual that they're more accurate for the next year and the next year, and as it goes further out, they become less accurate, and they give us that disclaimer up front that the guy that's going to show up and say Independence, that's behind me in Center Creek, when those guys are looking for water, they're actively looking for water right now. As soon as they find it, there's going to be another huge development that's not factored into the Davis demographics formula because it's not on the books yet. And so, when you start just kind of parsing this out as, if if the Kim Gardner thing is correct, and we're gonna be at 80,000 in 2060, then
Right.
we do have this growth coming. I mean, I think it would also be we'd also be amiss to think that that the high school is gonna grow for 5 more years and then it's just gonna stop.
Yeah, and their numbers don't actually show that, right? They slow us.
We'd see that, we'd see, because we've seen the same thing, that they tended to be higher in their estimates
Right.
in the near term. We've had 2 COVID years that are a little bit outliers for enrollment stuff for us, so we'll see. But we would at least expect, this is what we're kind of basing on. We would expect at least the curve is more similar in years 6 through 10 as it is to 1 through 5, even if it's a little lower than their.
Yeah.
But that's
just our
With that being
Yeah,
said,
no, I agree. Anything could happen. We have no idea. I just don't know how to have a fact-based argument if
So
we
you're
aren't.
just trusting the data?
I'm just saying, like, we don't have a better estimate, right? It's the estimate you guys commissioned, right?
Yeah.
And,
Well, if I can add, I think that the issue here is that these 2 proposals address that growth that's projected for the foreseeable future. And so, however it pans out, if you will, it's going to affect both of those proposals pretty much in the same manner in terms of capacity.
agreed, and I wasn't trying to throw water on the
Yeah.
proposal, I just wanted to make.
yeah, it's a completely fair point. Like, we have no idea. I mean, it could go the other way too, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people in the valley that think it's getting so expensive that families are going to stop moving here at the pace they have been, right? And so we have no idea. I think we're saying,
Let's trust that.
let's just trust what it says, and it's the best, I think it's the best we can do, right? So these are the 2 options that we see. There's probably others. These are the 2 that we've kind of done the numbers on. And you're saying with the foreseeable future, right? Even taking the maturity value out, like, it still what satisfies capacity for the next 10 years, right? On here. You guys are familiar with this one. This is kind of our modeling on it. We're here right now. The reason, so this is hard to see on the screen, this dotted line is the capacity with West Campus, right? So that's why this is how we're surviving right now, as you all know, right? We have West Campus here.
That must be with West Campus and an addition.
No.
No, this is just with West Campus. This is with Campus. This is the smaller school option. There's no addition here.
The current Wasatch.
The current, yeah. This is the current Wasatch High School, 2010.
Oh, I thought is that capacity 3,000?
Yeah, 3,000 up top. Or
It's shy of that. I mean, I think we're saying with West Campus, your capacity is like 2,900 or something like that. I can pull the raw data and show you what that line is. The capacity for
It's
West
about
Campus came from
2,800.
the numbers that we got from GSBS, their facilities assessment. That's right, it's about 2,800, that's right. Yeah.
So you're saying that in West Campus, our capacity is about 8 or 9?
I think it's about 800 with based on the GSBS facilities assessment that they gave us.
The only way that could be true is if we moved everything else out. We'd have to move our MTech classes out, we'd have to move.
Yeah, the problem you see on both proposals, if the number goes down, you're in just a worse situation on both of them, right? The point is, no, in neither proposal are we suggesting to use West Campus long term, right? It's a capacity buffer, right?
Sure.
So if we use the GSBS number from their facility report, it was about $800 or 800 people, right? It might be only be worth $800.
Yeah, the capacity of the school is 1,000, and based on the data that we were given, it said there was about capacity for 800 students on that campus. So there may be other
If you
people
took
in the
classrooms
campus.
and multiply that, it's probably.
Yeah.
It's about 800, so that's how you can see we're below right now, right? That's how we're surviving. You can see as the population ticks up, like we get above this, and you start to need portables in 2024, 25. This is the soonest we could think a new high school could be constructed, right? It would be 2026. I think, given when the bond would pass, whatever else, we think that's actually a year early, right? Of when you could actually get it done. But in any case, when that comes online, the population here drops down. Now you're comfortably below the capacity of the high school, and you are through 2030, right? Same thing over here. So this is showing capacity, new high school coming online in 2026. You never exceed the capacity, right? So this is the smaller high school option, right? Using, again, that maturity projection from Davis Demographics, In this model, you've got 1,300 extra seats at maturity. If you continue to use West Campus, if you get rid of oh, I can, yeah, sorry. I'm unmuted now. If you get rid of West Campus, you have about 560 extra seats at maturity under this model. Okay, so the larger school option, the thought here is you expand the wings, right? And then you either heavily remodel or tear down and rebuild a new school here on the West Campus location. The additions could be started, we think, a lot sooner and could potentially be complete in time for the 2023 school year. That may be aggressive too.
That's 23, 24?
Yeah, 23-24 school year, so not the one coming up, but the one after.
And that's using the data from Bud Mahas when they talked.
Yeah. So if that were to come online, you can see that this line ticking up, right? You still, in this model, just like the other model, you're going to need portables, right? You can't build fast enough in either model to not get into that situation, right? In this case, you've got the new school coming online in 2025. It's a smaller campus, should be able to be completed more quickly, and so then you duck back down, right? This model, you've got 144 extra seats at capacity, or at maturity.
So that would be building a new West Campus.
Yeah, building a new West Campus. It could
Either
be
a ninth grade center or
a magnet school. That's right.
So then, so at 2032 or whatever, whatever that is,
Yeah.
then we have 144 extra.
144 extra seats.
How many
That's sorry.
courses
That's using their maturity number. At 2032, you're actually at more than that. Because if you look at their projection, it goes like this, and then you see in the maturity it ticks up. Because they say
There's about
everything else after that.
500
it's
student
a-
jump.
That's on the books now.
Yeah. So now 2032, you've got more than that. At using their maturity number, you've got 144 extra seats.
so that's going to take us a good 10 years.
Yeah. So that's the larger high school option.
So how many square, when we rebuild the West Campus, how many square feet?
So we did, let's see here. I put this together a few weeks ago, so it's going to take me a second to find my everything again. Let's see. Cost comparison. Rebuild West Campus. Let's see, there's a sheet here that's called West Campus Rebuild somewhere. There we go. Okay, so the average, we used to assume 175 square feet per student. That's what you're assuming at the high school. And if you look at national averages, that's about normal for the number of square feet. In a high school, you need less, actually. Isn't that right?
In a middle school.
You need less in a junior high, like a ninth grade school only. So we use 175 square feet and 1,000 student capacity. So it's 175,000 square feet. Yeah. Cost per square foot, $330. This is the same estimate as the high school. Again, when you're building a junior high, it's actually probably lower, right?
So you're basically building like another TMS there.
Something like, yeah, exactly, what it used to be.
Because they have about 1,000 and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a model that's really popular actually down in Texas to do campuses like this. They do that, quite frankly, for sports purposes. It's one of the reasons it's used very heavily in Texas. So that way they can still have access to the students, but they're not part of the high school. So if someone's really good in ninth grade, they can play on the high school football team, but they're not part of the enrollment numbers, which allows them to compete at a lower district.
It's also what Park City's kind of doing. So their new thing is to build a freshman center on their existing high school, right? It's going to be kind of like they'll be on the same campus, but their freshmen are going to be kind of separate on their campus there in Park City. And that's the bond they just approved. Okay, so that's the larger high school, and it plays out in the numbers. This is kind of over your slide. This is the larger, but we see the benefits of going with the larger school option. One, it's a $51 million cost saving up front, and likely a bigger cost saving over time, right? You can have lower operating costs versus operating two completely separate high schools. I think we have the numbers of the additional personnel you need to operate a separate high school. It's like 70 extra personnel. I can't remember what it was. I thought I saw it in the email thread. It's not up here because I don't have a document source on it. So no crosstown rivalry, and that matters to some people. more academic opportunities. We'll talk about this in a second. And then time for growth to play out. I think this is, a lot of the community are uncertain of what's going to happen with growth. This kicks, if there does need another high school, it pushes it down the road 10 years, right? At that point, the population will be much bigger and the bond will be spread across more people. No encroachment on the north fields, alleviates overcrowding sooner than the other option. And then we also think it's a lot more likely to pass. I think the biggest finding from the surveys that GSDS presented at the beginning was that people want a more fiscally responsible option. I don't think that's the core driver for a lot of people that we're talking right here. Personally, I care a lot more about making sure academics are excellent, but I know a lot of people in the Valley, that's their number one driver. And then I think, for me, at least one of the most exciting benefits is that by sharing a campus, you share all the benefits while still keeping student populations manageable, right? Okay, so this is just kind of showing what we can do with $129 million, which is the baseline cost, the bottom estimate of the cost of a new high school in Northfields, right? So the addition to Wasatch High School is $20 million.
That's the 2 wings.
That's the 2 wings, yep. And that's not, it's higher than the number you guys showed at the meeting because I think the expansion years from the meeting was not as big as the Corner Canyon expansion. So we actually went back, ran the numbers again, looked at the square footage they added for the Corner Canyon addition, and that's why our number's higher than yours for the addition.
Just have to make sure there was room for the fire lane, physical room actually in there.
Yeah, so you'd have to check that. I think we looked at it and we thought there was, but we'll double check. This said that's the freshman or magnet school number, we just saw those on the spreadsheet. And then these would be the cost to be, from the facilities assessment, it looks like Midway Elementary and J.R. Smith really do need something, right? And so this would be a complete rebuild of those 2 schools at $25 million apiece. That brings your total cost of doing all of these to 128, which is still less than the lowest estimate of a new high school in Northfields.
So those aren't new high schools, those are just rebuilding those.
These are rebuilding.
Elementary schools.
This is rebuilding them, I think.
That's a rebuild.
These are rebuilding those, yeah.
Total rebuild.
Total
rebuild, right? And maybe there's other options.
Which we would add a lot of square footage,
Yep.
especially in Midway.
Yeah, and that was with increased square footage on each of those schools, that's why.
So that was like the Daniels Canyon model, maybe?
So Daniels Canyon surprisingly isn't as big as, like J.R. Smith is bigger than Daniels Canyon. So from a square footage perspective, so, I know the proposal that was out there initially, I think with the last bond was a 2-story elementary for Midway?
No, it was the Daniels Canyon. We had added some rooms for preschool.
Okay.
So
So it's a little bit
it
bigger
did have
for-
about 4
yeah.
more classrooms. The plan with that bond was we had line itemed some things so that we could get a line item bid up front, and then just if we could afford it, then we would add it on. We did that with both the high school and Midway. But yeah, it could be even bigger than Daniels Canyon with some additional classrooms.
Yeah.